G'day, H.M. Hart here. Interesting comment I'd like to respond to on my video, Borderline Personality Dating or Relationships, Hoover Hope, for those who are exes of BPD, working on surviving the BPD relationship breakup, right? So the commenter says, you'll never truly know the truth, and I'm not sure if that's, I don't think it's entirely about this video, but you'll never truly know the truth because the person with BPD doesn't know themselves. So what that truth refers to, I'm not sure. They live their life based on their current feelings. Whatever feelings they have, good or bad, will dictate, who and how they will love. Well, that's not really true. So for untreated people with BPD, people that may have what that really means, an adverse child response, response to adverse childhood experience. As this commenter says, you'll never truly know the truth because people with BPD don't know who they are. Yeah, that could be true for a lot of people, and I'm not here to sound like, oh, so I know so much more, I know better. No, but having had at least 3 strong BPD traits, because I'm going to be introducing, as I've alluded to over the last few weeks or more, revisionist history, because we know so much more now than we knew then, right? But point being, because I was on the inside of it to a degree, because of the adverse childhood experience that I had, yes, labeled with BPD, yes, went through a lot of recovery that was really eclectic, but yes, healed and recovered from that BPD that also I'm going to talk about, or I might be doing an ebook on it to put it all in one place about what I now understand about that, as I have alluded to over the last weeks and a couple of months. So what I'm trying to say here from the inside out of knowing that adverse childhood experience that is so common, that is often what brings about the label of BPD, whether or not that means a lot by itself anymore. People may believe that they can't know because the people with BPD don't know themselves. Well, just a little insider speak here on my part, that where I really garnered that information from is not only my own past lived experience, but it also comes from the fact that as a commenter said, whatever feelings they have, good or bad, will dictate who and how they will love. But whatever feelings they have in idealization, quote, good, in a devaluation split, quote, bad, don't dictate who and how they will love, because they cannot love unless they know and find in therapy the authentic self that was lost to the emotional arrested development. So it's not really about, I'm not saying that every single person on the face of the earth who has BPD can't love, but untreated, or let's say the situation exists, right? The human experience context of their adverse childhood experience exists. And so whether they're diagnosed or undiagnosed or diagnosed and untreated, that's what I'm really talking about specifically. But then there are a lot of people with BPD that have had some treatment, but not near enough treatment. Because the degree to which people can like or love or see others is dependent upon the degree to which people know themselves, like themselves, love themselves, healthy love, and respect for self that is then given to other. So people with BPD, unless they get significant treatment, and it's different for some people, get a lot of treatment and don't get to the place where they feel like they can have a relationship still. And many get beyond that and or to recovered. And I mean, and I'm in a great relationship right now, so that's just one example, but there are many people out there, and there are people with BPD who have had significant treatment that don't maybe have other things going on with that make their situation more complicated, then that will learn how to love and will learn how to take personal responsibility and will find themselves. So I'm not ever saying it's all people with BPD, but without a self, as a commenter alluded to, right? It's not whether they feel good or bad that's going to dictate how they love you or who they love. They don't love. This is really a core thing that I'm trying to educate about, because undiagnosed or diagnosed and untreated or not substantially treated to where this can be changed for people with BPD, they don't know how to love. They confuse love with need. So when they are experiencing other, maybe even in the idealization phase, they believe and they feel like that's so much love they have to give, but it's really about how much they need. It's a confusion of love versus need, and also the way they merge with others for identity. But so I respect a comment, and that's that person's experience and opinion. But I just wanted to say to that, you know, people with BPD, like I said in a video a day or two ago, they, you know, it's not that they all of a sudden feel your love and then they got to, you know, devalue you, split devalue you, and then they ghost you, or the relationship has to break up or rupture. No, because they don't feel the love. They don't take in the love. If I had a nickel for every client in the last 30 years, and including clients I'm working with right now, will say, you know, but we had this really, okay, never mind the honeymoon phase. We had this, so we had rocky times, it was this, it was that. And then they'll say, but like we had this really great weekend, or we went away for 3 days and like we were so close and it was so good. And then they got ghosted by the person with BPD. Because I think there's too much focus. I mean, adequate, it needs to be focused on the abandonment fear in BPD, absolutely. But the approach avoidance conflict all together, and that the engulfment fear might even be stronger for many people with BPD. Again, untreated more or less, or if not significantly treated. The engulfment fear is scarier almost for many with BPD than the abandonment fear. And the engulfment fear is getting too close. So many clients I've worked with over the years have said, and even recently, because it comes up a lot. There's this wonderful time that people get back to having in closeness. And whatever that might look like and mean in the actual dynamic, but in closeness for a day or 4 hours or 2 days, it's usually not an elongated period of time, before the person with BPD will feel engulfed and not know that, right, consciously. And then they got to either push you away, cut you off, or they'll ghost you. So it's not that this is an unknown thing about many people, like untreated or undiagnosed, with the adverse childhood experience, quote, known as BPD, unquote, that they can't love. They don't love. They can't take in the kindness. They can't stand the closeness. It's everything they want and need. And yet, the kinder you are to them, the more you give, the more you love. The angrier they get, the more engulfed they feel, the more they push away, the more they might really hold you to task and not be so, and be the opposite of nice about it, right? Because they can't take it in, because there is no self to take it in, to put inside, to hold. And with that being the case, and the absolute truth about BPD, then why would people think that they could love depending on their feelings or a different mood? Because it's not love. And that's something that maybe a lot of people still don't want to know, or a lot of people still don't want to hear. Just like an adult child of a BPD mother or parent, or a narcissist mother or parent, or maybe a couple of them. Many adult children right now of various ages, younger people, but even older people who haven't worked this through yet, have a very difficult time. It's so painful. People don't want to look at the reality, especially with a narcissistic parent. There's no love there for you. And with with a borderline parent, or, you know, it can be different because not everybody's the same. There could be some intermittent reinforcement, but it isn't going to be healthy love if the parent with BPD hasn't been treated, right? Or significantly treated. So adult children, in a different way than significant others and exes, struggle, and each can struggle for years or ongoing in life with this, you know, kind of block to not wanting to go to the pain and the loss of the fact that you were never loved. So partners aren't loved in a majority of cases with untreated or undiagnosed people with BPD, suspected BPD, or unless they've been significantly treated. So I'm not saying this is true for everybody with BPD, because it isn't. And many go on to recover. But many have had so much recovery that they do know who they are. They do have a place and a container of self inside, instead of not really the black emptiness that narcissists describe, but instead of that like lack, that empty feeling inside, which is the absence of self. So I just want to make it, for those who resonate with me, really crystal clear that a lot of people, and I'm not saying this of the commenter, but a lot of people want to keep believing that untreated or undiagnosed people or suspected people with BPD, or not significantly enough yet treated people with BPD, really did love you, really can love you. No, they can't, and they didn't, and they won't. Check out that video I did, I forget what it's called, but borderlines won't ever love you, can't love you, and never did love you. It's a stark and shattering truth. And if they don't have a self, which they don't unless they get significant treatment, they don't really have that container of authentic and healed self to no self to be able to do a lot of things from, but relate to others is one thing, or take in kindness, or somebody wanting to just help them, if not love them, like in a significant other relationship. But even adult children with BPD, railing against parents who, in a 25%, gave them all the love they possibly could. But the thing is, and then there's the adult children of borderlines and narcissists who still might be fighting against letting in the pain and the processing and the healing journey that's necessary there when the borderline parent or the narcissistic parent doesn't love you, can't love you, doesn't see you. So if you have an untreated parent with BPD and you're an adult child, you're facing the same, in a different relationship type, the same dynamics as significant others are facing more and more, and there's more and more of them out there, and exes of those with BPD. And like this commenter said, it's just not true that it depends how they feel as to who they'll love or how they'll love. No, it doesn't. Because there is no love that can come from a human being so wounded that they don't have a self. So I hope that's helpful. It's not happy news, but the good news is, whether you're the ex of somebody with BPD in a significant other relationship, or whether you're an adult child of a person with BPD or NPD or ASPD or whatever else, or BPD, NPD comorbid, got a big part of that healing and recovery process for adult children of cluster B is realizing that you weren't seen and that they had no capacity to love. And I think many adult children know that. Some have dealt with it, some haven't. I certainly dealt with it years ago in my life. And it's very daunting, it's very painful, it's very deep work. Because the wounds to the inner child, when you're not seen or loved by a borderline or a comorbidly both, or a narcissistic parent, and I had the BPD, NPD mother and the dark triad father, and there was no love there. And that can create a lot of anger in people. It can lead them in a lot of different ways in their own lives, because that is repressed pain that people kind of know inside but don't want to know. And that's what happens with a lot of exes too, who want to say, but this person must have loved me somehow, right? No, they really didn't. And that's a very painful aspect. You know what you gave, and you know what you hoped for, and you know what you thought you were getting back. And it's the same for adult children, and it can happen in other relationship types as well. That adult children are having a heck of a time in their lives processing that a cluster B parent couldn't and didn't love them. So, and in my case, my parents used money as a currency of, quote, love, unquote, when they weren't being otherwise giving me adverse experience. But that didn't really work with me. It didn't really feel good. I didn't really want necessarily every freaking toy in the world. Not that I had every toy, but what I was interested in. I didn't want any of that. I really wanted to be seen and heard and loved. And I have processed this a long time ago in my life, but it didn't happen. And it was very painful to go through that healing process. So if in fact you still believe that that borderline ex loved you, no, they didn't, they can't. It's unless they've had so much treatment, so close to recovery, that they really have found the self and are taking that self in a therapeutic way through the early stages of childhood development, whether they're 25, 35, 40, 50, 55, 60. Doesn't matter how old they are chronologically. This emotional work needs to be done, or they can't take in your kindness, they can't take in your love, they can't get close, they can't stand distance, they can't move in and out from closeness to distance, like, you know, like you have to go to work for the day, you're not going to be with them. So, and it varies across people with BPD, they're not all the same. But one thing I'd like people to really be able to hear, if you're ready and if it applies, and you've been in one of these relationships, or you're the adult child or somebody with BPD or NPD, you're dealing with complicated grief that might still be repressed, and denial that you might think you were loved, whether in a significant other relationship or as an adult child. I mean, as a child and then as an adult child. But you weren't. And that's something that I'm here to help people with if you resonate with me. But it's something that you have to look at and something that you have to heal. And that's why I'm talking about it so often. And it's not a global statement about everybody with BPD, but it is a global statement about everybody with BPD who has not yet found the self and has not gone far enough in therapy to be able to accept kindness and understand people can give. They have to have a self created, found, and starting to be reparented in therapy to be able to take in good, to be able to accept kindness, to be able to love.